Hello and welcome to Getaway Day. I am Mason. He is Gautham, and we are finally back after a uh kind of a somewhat long hiatus. I think this might be the longest time that we've been between episodes. It's been a full calendar
Happy
month.
New Year, sir.
Happy New Year. So, we have a lot to catch up on. Um like a lot. But I think we should take this opportunity real quick to thank everybody for bearing with us as I am in Kamloops, British Columbia, and have been for a couple weeks, and I'm going to be here for a bit more. Uh, we're just work and holidays and life got in the way, but we're here. We're getting ready to kick off our kind of plan for the off season here, leading up to the regular season. I think we've got some fun stuff in store for you guys. Gautham, I know we haven't really put a whole lot of thought into our plan yet. We're kind of just winging it. But is there any one particular thing that you're thinking in your head that you are most looking forward to in just this next year of podcasting?
Um, I think that the thing I'm most looking forward to is um I don't know, just continuing to do it. Like it's kind of hard to believe that this is now going to be what our fifth season doing
21,
podcasting.
22, 23. Yeah, this will be our fifth season.
Yeah, so that's like hard to believe in itself. Just the fact that yeah, okay, it's been a month since we did our last podcast. It's the off season. Give us a little break here. We continue to put out episodes because we both really enjoy it, and that's why I enjoy it because it's something that I can count on um, most of the time.
Well, the coolest thing for me is like kind of what I'm doing out here in Kamloops. I'm here for work, but I'm making the most of it. Just I go out and I talk to people everywhere because that's what I do is I talk. And I've met, I don't know, three, four people so far that just in conversation, we start talking about sports and I mention I like baseball, and that's not a terribly common thing here. But I think we now have 3 to 4 listeners from the Kamloops area. So thank you very much to all you guys. We really, really appreciate it. Um, but yeah, it's just sharing this love of this sport with people all over the states and, well, now the world, um, North America at least. But yeah, I'm excited to keep doing it. So, all right, what do you say that we get into some actual news, some things that we've missed in the last month? So, the first thing, um, Hall of Fame all-time steals leader Ricky Henderson passed away at the age of 65 here a couple weeks ago. That is an absolutely devastating loss to the baseball community. As is Bob Euchre, who passed away, I believe, last week. Longtime voice of the Brewers, former catcher with the St. Louis Cardinals, and a couple other teams there. I think the Brewers, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think he played for three teams, with the Brewers being one of them.
Yeah, and so both of those are huge losses to the baseball community, and people have been kind of mourning those for a while. And I have a feeling that there's going to be some uh, celebration of life sort of events during the baseball season this year for both of those guys because of just how much they meant to the sport. Um, so it was some unfortunate news, but alas, time moves on. So, got anything else to say on Uke or Ricky?
Yeah, well, yeah, I have plenty of things to say on those guys, but I guess I'll say on Bob Euchre that he was he was like one of a kind because he would be doing those games. You could always count on Bob Euchre to just be like very funny in the Brewers broadcast, and he would do it solo. He didn't even need like another guy to play off to be comedic. He could actually just be talking about the baseball game, and then he'd be like poking fun at himself and poking fun at other people even, but he didn't do it in the way that's like, oh, that was kind of like a little rude or mean or anything. Like it was just plain funny. And even when he was 90 years old, he still had like a very clear voice and um, knew what was going on, and he could do these solo gigs, which is the most impressive thing I think in broadcasting, that anybody can do baseball on your own. And um, very few guys like perfect that, and I feel like he did. And he meant so much to the Brewers too. Like he would come down whenever they made the playoffs and literally party with the players, because he was like essentially just a part of the team. He wasn't just like a external broadcaster. He was like the lifeblood of Milwaukee Brewers, and it's going to be like really weird that he's not there anymore.
Yeah, the sheer number of unopened cans of Miller Lite that have been put on his statue outside of formerly Miller Park, now American Family Field, is kind of astounding. Like, it's not surprising. Like, he's absolutely beloved. When Jack Buck passed away, St. Louis did a very similar thing, and every city does. Vince Scully had a very nice um, show or public showing of support by Dodgers fans, but it's just it always puts me in awe to kind of just see how many people that someone with a microphone can affect. Um,
And kind of as I read those tributes, I didn't realize that at one point the Yankees tried to get Bob Uecker to be their uh, broadcaster, and he turned it down because he was just a fixture in Milwaukee. He loved it there, and they loved him.
I probably wouldn't want to move either. So that's a great little gig to have. So, so in other Hall of Fame news, since Uke is a Hall of Fame broadcaster, Ricky's obviously a Hall of Fame left fielder. Today, today, the 21st of January, 2025, the Hall of Fame announcement for 2025 was made at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we have three new modern era Hall of Famers. The first one, uh, Billy Wagner. He's been on the ballot for 10 years now. He's been getting closer and closer, and the argument has been, how do we treat relief pitchers? Are relief pitchers just pitchers? Are we comparing them to starters and that's how we're going to value them? Or in the Hall of Fame, is relief pitcher its own role? And if so, Billy Wagner should have been in a long time ago, honestly, because he's the best left handed relief pitcher ever by most stats. Uh, so he finally got in. So that puts him, Lee Smith, Trevor Hoffman, Bruce Sutter, Mariano Rivera, and I think there's one other relief pitcher that I'm missing in that list. But so we now have seven relief pitchers. So I think we can shut the book on that and say relief pitcher is a specific role in the Hall of Fame. Correct?
Yeah, I think no, that's exactly what this signals, because Billy Wagner is, other than Mariano, all those other guys are like old guys. Mariano and Billy Wagner are the two modern pitchers from that list. Mariano is in a class of his own. He was surefire Hall of Famer. Everybody thought that, and he got voted in
And,
like that.
and he was the only
And
unanimous guy ever in Mariano Rivera.
exactly. So that was, he's on his own. He stands alone. Billy Wagner represents this new, it's a new
And,
role that's being appreciated by the Hall of Fame. And
yeah, because he was not.
there's definitely arguments against it, but like I'm all for it as roles change in baseball. The different stipulations for how we vote on them have to change too. We can't just like compare them to all the pitchers ever and pitchers from 1920 and this and that. Like you've got to be compared to your peers within your era. And Billy Wagner was elite within um, the modern era as a relief pitcher doing his specific job.
Yeah, and his job was basically a fireman. Yes, he closed games, but he wasn't like a full-time closer. He was just the high leverage guy. And so that's kind of opening up this possibility for other non-closers who were or non-career closers that rack up massive save numbers like Lee Smith and like Trevor Hoffman and Mariano Rivera to have a shot at the Hall of Fame. And that's something that we haven't seen before. I also think that this might signal that if we're willing to change how we look at pitchers, we're going to change how we look at hitters, which is something that has been moving towards a little bit because we're not seeing 3,000 hit guys every year. We're not seeing 500 home run guys every year. We're starting to get a lot more of the Dustin Pedroias and the David Wrights, who were spectacular players. And then an injury occurred and their career was basically over right then. I think Pedroia played 3 games
Yeah,
after his injury,
three games in 3 years after his big injury.
and David Wright played not a whole lot more than that after his injury. And so like we're maybe going to start seeing those guys get some love. And when Buster Posey comes up, we'll have like a true test to that because he was a short career, but hands down on field Hall of Famer. So we're going to see how things change. But Billy Wagner was not the only guy inducted today. 2 first ballot guys. One of them, you know him, you love him from your New York Yankees, from your Milwaukee Brewers, and I believe from the Minnesota Twins?
No,
No.
the Indians.
Yeah, Cleveland. There we go. I knew it was an AL Central team. CC Sabathia. Um, Guy had fantastic numbers in the first half of his career. Basically, up until he was like 31, he was stellar, one of the best, hands down, like on a Hall of Fame track. Later in his career, he was still pitching. He said himself that he was going to pitch until his arm fell off, and he pretty well did that. And so his career numbers don't look spectacular. I think his career ERA was maybe 3.75.
374.
Um,
Yep.
374. And he had a couple other stats that they look kind of pedestrian. But if you go look at his first 10 years of work, CC was untouchable. I mean, he won or did he win the Cy Young, or he almost won the Cy Young in less than half a season for Milwaukee?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was what I was gonna share. My number one thought when I think of CC Sabathia is when he got traded mid-season to the Brewers, and he went on this just ridiculous run. Like he single-handedly almost got the Brewers to the World Series because he was just going out there pitching like 8 innings, 9 innings. He would hit a home run too. That was back when
So,
pitchers could hit, and this guy like could really like slug.
did you know
And
that that season CC actually did not pitch on full rest after mid-August?
yeah, no, I remember he was
Yeah.
pitching basically 3 days rest, 4 days rest every single time out because the Brewers had no starting rotation aside from him. So it was just back to CC, back to CC. Let's see how many he pitched 253 innings that year.
Yeah.
Um,
That was 2009,
Unreal.
2008.
2008. Yeah,
And then 9 he was with the Yankees.
that's when he signed the big contract with the Yankees, and that is one long-term pitcher deal that absolutely worked out for the team and the player
Yeah.
because they won the World Series in 2009 and he was a workhorse, really. I mean, even late career, he was still putting up innings. I mean, he wasn't nearly as effective. He had a couple down years, but then he sort of had a second wind and finished strong really in the end of his career in New York too.
Yeah. And so I'm really glad that they didn't look at his overall career numbers alone and then go, nah, this man was pedestrian. CC absolutely deserved to be in. Um, and his story is insane. Like, just he was an alcoholic, and then he's a recovering alcoholic now. but just like how that impacted his career. It's a story that is really interesting to read.
Have you seen Under the Grapefruit Tree?
I have not.
You should definitely check that out. It's a documentary about CC Sabathia.
Okay. Where's that at? Is it Netflix or
I don't remember.
okay? I'll look it up. Um, but one more Hall of Famer, and I think the only two numbers that really need to be said for this man are 3,056 hits in Major League Baseball, and then another 1,200 plus over in the NPB. That man, MVP and Rookie of the Year, the only one of two people to ever do that. Ichiro. He was
Yeah,
one vote short of unanimous. The one voter remained anonymous. And that makes me so mad that you have a guy that is hands down, yes, absolutely. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He had 200 hits and a gold glove for like 7 or 8 straight seasons. Like people,
I think it was 10 years straight that he
was it
won the
10
Gold
years?
Glove and the Silver Slugger.
Yeah, that's not something that a normal person can do. That's not even something most Hall of Famers can do. He's an inner circle Hall of Famer that should have been unanimous. It doesn't matter if Babe Ruth wasn't unanimous in 1930, whatever, when they created the Hall of Fame. Doesn't matter that Jeter was one vote short. He shouldn't have been one vote short either. Why are we doing this? What's the point? It makes no sense. And
Um,
I know there's no answer. It was just kind of a rhetorical. But
Fair.
yeah.
Yeah. To draw a parallel to Ricky Henderson, these are like the single name dudes. Ricky Henderson is Ricky, and
Yeah.
Ichiro is just Ichiro. Like they don't need any full
Willie.
names. Like,
Yeah, it's Willie, Babe, Ichiro, Ricky,
yeah,
Cal. Like,
yeah, that says it all basically. Like, he was just so like there's any way you slice it, everything that this guy did on the field was just insane. It was like he's the true like 5 tool player. He didn't really hit for power in games, but he had power. Obviously, hit king, um, insane fielding and insane throwing arm, um, running the bases, stealing like 40 plus bases, like many years of his career. And it's also a guy that came over to MLB when he was 27. So he'd already had like a decent career in Japan. And
mhm.
then he goes on to play till he's like 45 years old,
Yeah.
which is also what Ricky Henderson did, right?
Yep. And so, a little fun fact here: Ichiro is the longest tenured Marlin in the Hall of Fame.
What?
458 career games with the Marlins. The next guy, 151 games with the Marlins.
Who's that?
Oh shoot, I'm trying to remember. I
And do the Marlins
just
have
had
any
it
Hall
up.
of Famers?
Uh,
Well, other than Ichiro and that
so
guy.
there's guys that have played for. Let's see. This was on Twitter. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember where I saw this. Uh, shoot. Now I don't remember where I saw it.
I got it.
Um,
The Hall of Fame inductee register for the Marlins. They have like 8. Tony Perez, Andre Dawson, Mike Piazza, who is probably their best Hall of Famer, and oh, Pudge Rodriguez. Okay, that's a good one. Tim Raines, Trevor Hoffman, and Jim Leland.
okay. And Leland obviously was not a player.
Yeah.
Yeah. That that would be surprising. Like 60-year-old Jim Leland when the Marlins are formed in 93?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was 60 in 93, right? Cuz he's like a
He's
gazillion
always
now.
been old, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is your Hall of Fame class this year. Billy Wagner, CC Sabathia, and Ichiro. Along with, I believe, Dick Allen, and there was one other from the era committees. Can't remember who it was.
Yeah. I don't recall.
If I think of it, I'll mention it. Um, but yeah, so we do have quite a bit of other stuff to talk about. But we wanted to make sure to hit the Hall of Fame first because that is the newest of information. Um, I want to start with a little team down in Texas. What do you think?
All right.
So the Houston Astros have not really had a terribly busy offseason so far. It's been kind of a weird situation trying to see what they're going to do with Alex Bregman being a free agent. Doesn't really seem like they're looking at re-signing him. So
They traded their best player, man.
yeah, that's true. They traded Kyle Tucker. So it kind of looks like they're tearing it down, right? Just
Not
by
really, because
well,
they don't seem like they are.
yeah,
Okay,
but
sorry.
it
I, I,
it
I
just
ruined your setup there.
it just seems weird to me that two of their best players are now gone, and it doesn't really seem like they're doing a whole lot to refill it. However,
Yeah, that's fair.
they were working out or trying to work out a trade with the St. Louis Cardinals to bring in Nolan Arenado to replace Alex Bregman. Nolan Arenado actually declined that trade. Didn't give a reason, but he doesn't have to. He has a full no trade clause. But it actually brings up a couple of interesting questions, both for the Astros and for the Cardinals. I kind of want to start with the Cardinals because there's more to talk about with the Astros as well. But so it's now January. We're past Cardinals winter warm up, and Notto's still on the team, but it was priority number one, according to John Mozeliak, to trade him. And it doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot of takers. The teams that Nato was interested in going to don't seem to be interested in him. So I guess I'm really confused as to what that whole situation is. It seems like at winter warm up, Bill DeWitt Jr. said that a Nolan Arenado trade does not have to happen, and it will not require them to cut costs in other parts of the roster to keep him. Because their whole thing was we're going to cut payroll and give young guys a chance. Well, they haven't really traded any of their guys, so the only payroll trimming is just not bringing back any free agents.
Yeah.
So I guess that's enough for Bill DeWitt, but then at the same time, John Mozeliak still said that plans A, B, and C are to trade Arenado.
Yeah.
So
I guess like yeah, it's a very unclear message from baseball operations, also ownership, because I don't feel like they have a lot of leverage in this situation, anyways, because they're kind of at the mercy of Arenado to say, yes, I want to go to this place or that place. And then also with his contract, which is not like too terrible, but it's something they're trying to offload. So it's not like they would pay down a big portion of the salary to get a prospect. That's not what they're looking to do. They're literally looking to cut their payroll. And that will likely result in uh, maybe mediocre return. Like they're not getting like top 100 prospects for Nolan Arenado at this stage of his career. And
which
and the other thing that's holding things up, I believe, is the Alex Bregman situation. I always thought that he could be like a fallback option to an Alex Bregman, but with that situation just kind of unfolding at a snail's pace because clearly teams are not trying to meet the demand that Scott Boras has for Bregman. It almost feels like he's going to be another guy that lands up in the Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery bucket where he has to settle for like a 3-year deal with opt outs or something. And
Yeah.
every team is just waiting for that to happen because they don't want to give this guy like a 7-year deal, and I don't blame them.
No, and I
Then
mean, really, just kind of in general, Bregman is not really stood out, I guess, the last couple of years. So he's not a guy that you're looking at as, oh, he's a superstar, we're going to bring him in. It's, oh, he's a very good player. Is he going to keep it up long term? We're kind of we've
yeah,
kind of seen the best of him, we think.
seems
So
like it. Yeah,
you're not going to go give him a massive deal. So I completely get it from other team standpoints. If Boris is asking for 7 years and a ridiculous amount of money, probably wouldn't do it either. It's not like he's a Vladdy Jr. or a Juan Soto hitting the market.
hmm
Like he's what, 32?
I think it's like 30.
But I don't know. So it kind of makes sense to me that his market is moving slowly.
However, the
But
Astros though, they seem like a team that um, they've clearly operated under this same principle time and time again, where they let their guys get to free agency, and if that happens, then they're probably not re-signing them. Like they've let George Springer go, they've let Garrett Cole go, and
Carlos
um,
Correa,
Carlos Correa. I mean, Jim Crane does not do big deals for free agents. That's company policy, it seems like, and that's why they traded Tucker. So it feels like, hey, they're taking a step back. But I think the other moves they're making on the side are showing that, hey, okay, yeah, we're maybe taking a step back. We just traded our best player, but we're not giving up completely. We can definitely compete in the division. We just traded for Isak Paredes. He's the plug-in fill-in for Bregman. He's not a bad player by any means. Maybe he's a step down, but it's not like they're throwing in the towel. Um,
yeah,
and then go ahead with the
A-
signing
and
that they
then
made.
and then bringing in Christian Walker for 3 years to man first base. And that's kind of a position that they've just had kind of an abyss the last few years. Trying to bring in Jose Abreu, that didn't work. Who'd they bring in last year,
They've been
or was
mixing
it
and
still
matching with
Abreu?
like Abreu and John Singleton, and it's been pretty bad for a few
Yeah,
years.
and so bringing in Christian Walker, who is not exactly young, but he's a very, very, very good hitter. He's a very good defensive first baseman. This feels like a lot more of a safe move than Abreu was, just based on age there. Um, but they're not going and spending a ridiculous amount of money to bring in a first baseman, which is kind of the right move. Um,
Yeah, no,
so
I love Christian Walker. I think he's a great player. You mentioned the defense, like he's won the Gold Glove I think the last 3 years, and he
mhm,
he rates out by all the stats as like clearly the best guy in the league. Um, and yeah, I think he can really hit, and he gets to now hit into Crawford boxes, which Alex Bregman can tell you, like, made him a lot of money. It's about to make him a lot of money.
yeah, yeah. So
And this guy's
some
got
of
the real raw power to do it too.
So I can tell you where Bregman is not going to go, and that is to Mount Baltimore.
Mount Baltimore's coming in.
I know, but it's not coming in enough for Bregman,
Okay, okay.
so he's not going there. Uh, yeah. So I think for the most part, that's a lot of the big stuff for the Astros, right?
Believe so. Yeah.
So let's kind of move to the other large, large piece that has finally kind of taken place here in the last couple weeks. So Roki Sasaki, the 23-year-old Japanese pitching phenom, came over, decided he was going to come over before age 25, go through the entire arbitration process, the league minimum salaries for 3 years, and signing for just international bonus pool money, and which makes him affordable to every single team in the majors. I think 8 of those teams actually reached out to him and had some form of a meeting with him. He pretty quickly narrowed it down to 3 teams: the San Diego Padres, the
I
Toronto
think
Blue
I think
Jays.
you're skipping. Like there was there was like a first round and then like a second round, I think.
Yeah, but it's
Because
harder to
at
list
the
like
beginning, I think there were like 20 teams that reached out to him. He whittled it down to about 8, and those teams were listed. And then there may have been like some additional meeting type things or something. And then
yeah,
it was down to the final 3.
yeah, but basically the 8 was just too many to list off. But he really only went and did in-person workouts with the final 3. Um, so he had whittled it down. I think the Yankees were in it, the Mets were in it, like all the big teams. Um, and then he got it down to 3: San Diego, Toronto, and LA. Dodgers. Not Angels. Sorry, Angels fans. Um, he worked out for all 3. Uh, then you start seeing Toronto trading to get international bonus pool money the day that the Padres were ruled out. Fun fact, the maximum that you can have bonus pool money wise is $10 million. The Padres had $10 million bonus pool money and offered all of it to Roki Sasaki. It also seemed like a pretty good place for him, because the NL West, you're going to be playing against a lot of his countrymen, playing with you, Darvish. It seemed like it was one of the best spots he could go, but something he didn't really love, so he said no, leaving it to Toronto and LA. And can we remember 2 off seasons ago, there was another Japanese pitcher, really, really good, came over as a international amateur, um, was down between Toronto and the Dodgers. What was his name? Shohei Otani?
And that was just a year ago, actually.
Oh, it was a year ago. I was thinking a year
Yeah,
ago was Yamamoto.
it was.
Oh gosh,
Yamamoto
I'm
was
so
also last year.
confused. Oh
Yeah.
crap, you're right. Uh, Everything's run together in my head. Um,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, so a year ago, uh, there was a private jet coming from LA to Toronto. Toronto gets all hyped. John Heyman, I think, said that it was a done deal. And then turns out it was not Shohei Otani. He decided to go to the Dodgers. It's not going to happen twice, right? That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Uh, so Toronto
I guess
trades.
I want to address the that Toronto bit of it. We're gonna come back to Toronto in a little bit after we talk about the Dodgers, but were they not listening to the assignment here? Because he clearly was clear that the money didn't really matter in the decision, and he showed that by turning down the Padres 10 million. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays think, oh, let me go trade for a little bit more pool money, and I'll take on Miles Straw's $11 million, so I can do that, and then it being totally useless, and you're left with Miles Straw. So just reeks of desperation, and I get it because they have missed on these top tier free agents. They're getting to the point where it's like we'll do whatever it takes. We will do crazy things to get somebody to sign with us.
Yeah, and they're at just a really unfortunate disadvantage, I think, kind of in general. It's not exactly the city that I think a lot of major league players like think about when they think about, oh, what are the sexy towns? They're kind of thought of as more of a St. Louis. Like it's a great city. I've been to Toronto. I love it. It's a great city, and a lot of people who have been there also love it. But you got to deal with customs, and it's not fun dealing with customs all that much. There's not really any other Japanese players that he can uh, kind of kind of assimilate with the team more easily because of.
He also
Whereas
said he didn't care about that.
true, but
I
he
think we
ended
should
up
talk about
going.
what he actually asked of the teams, which I thought was very interesting. He gave
What did he
everybody
ask?
an assignment. He said, okay, everybody, my velocity dropped this past season. What, why did that happen? And what can you do to prevent this from happening in the future? I think that's a fantastic question to ask of teams, and very interesting to hear that coming from like a 23-year-old guy. Like clearly shows that he thinks about this stuff a lot. He's very dedicated to his craft, and the most important thing in this whole situation was how am I going to be like Shohei Otani? How am I going to be superstar over these next 6 years, which are like his build up period to superstardom? Because he's got that. Um, that's the situation that he's put himself in. He clearly was not out there for money. It's all about his craft. It's all about pitching and being the best he can possibly be.
Yeah, and because I mean, if he was about the money, he would have waited 2 years and then signed a
Exactly. Yeah.
ridiculously large contract. So it was
Exactly.
pretty obvious from the beginning that it wasn't all about money, because why else would you do it that way? So it makes sense that he wants to develop further and thinks that coming to the majors is the best way for him to continue to develop. And it kind of makes sense that the Dodgers were probably able to give him a game plan. I don't know if they've solved it, but they could give him a game plan of what are they going to do to help him unlock his potential, be able to keep throwing 101 forever, which is just insane to me. Starting pitcher
Yeah.
throwing
I saw
101
that
at 23 years
um,
old.
Tyler Glasnow, I guess, spoke with him, and he told him like, "Hey, I haven't played in the other organizations that you're considering, like San Diego or um, Toronto. But what I can tell you is that the Blue Jays, that the Dodgers organization, we've got it all. Like you will get exactly the plan you need, and they're going to set you up like best for success." And he's a guy that just went through this process. He just joined the Dodgers and signed an extension, and in 1 year he can say those things, and it all makes sense. Like not
Yeah.
it's not surprising.
Like there's a reason that every player wants to go to the Dodgers. And I believe that that is a very significant part of it. That it's a team that just legitimately cares that their athletes are put in the best position at all times. And it shows by just how many people want to go play for the Dodgers. It's not just that they want to play with Shohei. It's probably a pretty good portion of it for some people. It's not just that they pay a lot of money, although that is probably a part of it for some people. But their farm system is so good for a team that always drafts low because they're always good. Uh, their international signing or free agent class is just always one of the best. Their draft classes always seem to turn out these guys who are average to above average major league players, and they haven't had a lull in like 10 years.
This
It
is like the
just,
tiniest nit that I can pick with the Dodgers. It's that I think their prospects actually kind of stall out because they get in these weird situations. The guy I'm thinking of like is Gavin Lux. Gavin Lux shows up and they're, the whole diamond's full of super studs. He doesn't have a lot of like responsibilities, and he also doesn't have playing time. And Gavin Lux was a huge prospect, and we're seeing the same things now with the guy like
Diego Cartaya.
Andy Pius. Yeah. And they're just like he's a great player. I think he could start for 20 other teams in the league or something. He's like fourth outfielder, maybe fifth outfielder for the Dodgers. And yeah, he'll certainly develop, but it's going to be different. It's not going to be like other prospects who get real runway to prove themselves. But other than that, like that's not a real problem that the Dodgers have. That's a problem that that individual type of player has. It's not really a problem for the Dodgers because they've got other guys to fill those roles.
Yeah. But so it kind of makes sense that Roki signed with the Dodgers to me. It kind of, I guess, didn't complete the idea in 29 franchises fan bases heads that this just seems unfair. Um, it like that's constantly what I'm hearing now. People want a salary cap. No, it's not unfair. Other teams can do this. It's not like they're just going out and saying, "Here's $3 trillion to play for us." Have they given out big contracts? Yes, but the team is generating enough money to do that. It's not like the owner had to be a billionaire beforehand to be able to do this. So I, I don't understand why people are that mad. I get that it's frustrating that it seems like no team can get a free agent because since Roki signed, um, Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, Song Kim, Teoscar Hernandez, they've all also signed with the Dodgers. Granted, Teo was there last year, so he just re-signed. But like you got these guys that have signed. You got Shohei and Yamamoto last year. You got
You got Blake Snell this year. I
yeah,
mean,
Blake Snell this
they
offseason. It just seems like they're
yeah,
finding the good players and just saying, okay, you're going to help us win. Here's some money. And no other team is going, hey, we have a legit shot at winning right now. And we also have a lot of money. Here you go. I'm sure if you did that, there's a chance that you could get some of these guys. But it seems like teams aren't willing to give what players are worth. And the Dodgers are maybe the only team that does that. And there's just so much respect for that locker room right now that you're almost willing to take a little less to go play with the Dodgers.
yeah, no, absolutely. And they for all the people that want the salary cap, like these rules are in place for every team. Every team has this opportunity to spend.
Yeah.
The Dodgers are following the rules. They are not cheating in any way. They are just doing it better than everybody else, and that's
So, Gotham, pop quiz, because what the Dodgers are doing kind of reminds me of something in history. What other team was it that seemed like they were always buying free agents and that's how they were always good and they won like a
the
whole bunch of
'90s, the
championships?
'90s, 2000s Yankees.
Yeah, that sounds about right. The 90s, 2000s Yankees, different franchise, did the same thing, played under the same rules the Dodgers did at the time. George Steinbrenner just did it best. Now,
Yeah, and
uh,
it's good. It's good for baseball. People
it
saying this
is.
is bad for baseball. It's great for baseball because a villain team is good. It's like
Yeah,
everybody
everybody
wants to
wants to
beat the
see their
Dodgers now.
downfall.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants to see their downfall. And
And
obviously, except for
dynastic
that team.
teams, which I think you can argue that the Dodgers are now into dynasty territory. They've got a
Oh, yeah.
couple of rings here, and they've got what 10 plus years of making the playoffs, and that draws in like the casual fan in a way that can't happen under any other circumstance. Like the Bulls became like that because they're winning so many championships within such a few number of years. If the Dodgers can back it up and actually win like 5 championships like the Yankees did in the '90s, 2000s, um, there are going to be so many eyes on this team because it doesn't get old. Like greatness doesn't get old. It's the
Yeah.
greatest thing you can see.
How many people in the Tom Brady New England era can you think of in not New England were Patriots fans? I think of
Yeah,
tons.
exactly.
Like from 2000 until 2013 or whatever, it was just everybody loved the Patriots unless you rooted for another team and then you only wanted them to lose every game. The same thing here. Like it just the Dodgers have set themselves up by investing money in their team, knowing that they're going to be able to reap the benefits later. A lot of these other teams, and Bill DeWitt Jr. mentioned this or the other day. I think it was maybe uh, it wasn't Jim Jones or Jeff Jones. Sorry, Jeff Jones, the Bellevue Democrat, St. Louis Cardinals reporter. But someone had asked Bill DeWitt Jr. Uh, basically the relationship between payroll and ticket sales, and like they don't want to invest too much because they don't want to lose money because their plan is long-term sustainment. But the Dodgers have found out if you just dump a whole bunch of money now and then get good, you're going to bring in a lot more later. So a lot of these teams seem to just be focused on how do we minimize our losses, and to do that is to minimize what we put into it. And the
Yeah.
Dodgers
No,
went,
that was
how do we
fantastic.
minimize our losses? We put in as much as we possibly can and build something that someone wants to watch and come play for, and then we just win every year.
Yeah, I have so much to say on that, and it just all goes back to um like competition, right? All these small market teams that are crying poor half the time, they are not in it for the winning. They're not in it for like baseball reasons. They're in it they're running they're running it exactly like some other business. But I'm trying to make the case that a baseball team is not like your typical business. You know, it's a competitive endeavor.
Well,
Other businesses are competitive too, and why are they
so
treating it like something that
another fine note,
shouldn't be competitive?
that I think will take this in maybe a slightly different direction. Bill DeWitt did specifically say he's not trying to profit with the Cardinals. He just wants to break even. And like,
Did he really say that?
yes, he said that
That's
they were,
exactly what Ricketts said at Cubs convention this past weekend.
yeah, but in theory it makes sense. In theory, because at least you're not profiting, you're just making enough to sustain the team. And so in theory that works. There's other teams that are in it for a profit. Teams like the Rays, teams like the A's, they're in it to make a profit on the team. That is the least baseball reason you could do. At least some of these teams are like, okay, we're going to put in as much as we can to try and win, but guarantee we don't lose money.
Yeah,
And
but you
so
don't believe DeWitt, right? Like you know the Cardinals making a profit, right?
he's not trying to make a profit purely with ticket sales, is what he said.
Okay.
Ballpark Village, all these extra things, yes, they're making a ridiculous amount of profit. I get that. I'm just saying his explanation in theory says that there is some baseball to his business. And the way that he's run the team for 20 years, you know that he loves baseball. He does love the team, but he's trying to put the business first. There's other owners that don't care about the baseball at all. They just care about the money.
Yeah.
And that's your John Fisher. Like, he doesn't care at all about the baseball. He only wants to make profit, and he only wants to put in the bare minimum to keep a team on the field and then make the money. So there is a bit of a difference, but Andrew Friedman, Magic Johnson, the Dodgers ownership group, they are purely in it to win baseball games.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, just this is obviously never going to happen, but imagine a league with 30 different teams that were owned by a guy like Steve Cohen or the Guggenheim Group. Like, how awesome would that be? 30
It
teams equally motivated to win. You would have the most ridiculous league ever.
it would be the Premier League. Is what that would
Yeah.
be. Because the Premier League, if they're not winning, they don't stay in the league. So they are
Yeah.
obsessed with winning. Why don't we do that here? Or
Yeah.
just some form of it. Like, obviously, I don't think that we're ever going to have like a true delegation system or relegation system that we could
Relegation.
do
Yeah.
here. Um, I'm just going to delegate the league to you. You can have this one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so it just, I don't know. It's wild to me. I get why people are frustrated. I'm frustrated as a Cardinal fan seeing that, but I knew the Cardinals weren't going to sign any of these guys anyway. So it's like, would I love to see some of these guys go to maybe Minnesota? would I love to see him go to Atlanta? Yeah, probably. But this is actually kind of cool to watch too, in a weird, sick, and twisted way.
Yeah.
So, all right. Now, the team that it keeps trying to do what the Dodgers do, though, and keeps coming in second to the Dodgers, the Blue Jays, they have not just given up since they've missed out on Roki or since they've missed out on Shohei. Um, they are still trying. They brought in Jeff Hoffman for 3 years, $33 million, which is actually a lower deal than he was offered by, I believe, Baltimore.
It was
Uh,
Baltimore, and I think there was one other team that failed his medical.
did
I
he
think it
did
was the
he actually
Braves.
take a physical with the Orioles? I thought he
He
just
did,
backed
yeah.
out before that.
I think he took a physical and then they backed out of the deal.
Okay, so Jeff Hoffman, and then Anthony Santander yesterday signed a 5-year, $92 million deal with the Jays, and
This
I
is
really
probably
like
my
that move.
least favorite deal of the offseason because it just, I mean, Anthony Santander seems like a pretty one dimensional player. He's just like a power hitting outfielder who's not a very good outfielder, really low OBPs. And he feels like a player that's going to be bad in like 1 or 2 years.
I
And
mean,
if you're the Blue Jays, I understand your situation. You have to go do something. You have to go add to the team with the place they are with Vlad and Bo, with their own management being kind of on the hot seat. They're forced to make a move like this when they miss out on every other free agent. But I don't like the move like on its own.
so I don't actually mind that move. I think it's a better move than what they've done in the last couple years, it seems. Because last year, when they missed out on Shohei, who'd they get? Justin Turner. Santander right now is kind of in his prime. Um, Maybe a little bit towards the end of it, but he has power. He is a really good hitter, which that team needs more hitters. Like now they brought in Miles Straw, but they don't. It seems like they either have guys that are really streaky or guys who have no track record. Um, for who they've been fielding out, and then they'll go bring in an aging veteran to man a position that they just have a hole at. Well, at least now they're bringing in some guy closer to his prime. He's going to help improve that lineup from a hitting standpoint. He can play first base if Vladdy is DHing or at third or whatever. He could play in right field. I think he technically plays second base too. I wouldn't do it, but it's an option. Um, but so there's some options there. It's not like he's just a first baseman DH and that's it. Like he has a couple other things that you can use him for. And I think he is an offensive upgrade over some of the aging veterans they could have gone to instead. So maybe the
Yeah.
deal is too long, maybe it's too much money, but it got the deal done and I think this is the best move they could make to improve their 2025 team. So,
Maybe so, yeah. No, I just think they're in a really like boxed in situation where they didn't have choices, and that's why they had to go do this.
yeah. So there is one guy that would be a massive help if you can figure out how to fit players around the horn. Um, that would be first baseman, absolutely mashes Pete Alonso. He's available because the Mets and him were negotiating a deal, and he wanted opt outs and higher AAV, and the Mets just told him to get lost. Um, and so Alonso's looking for a team that's not the Mets. Uh, this seems like the perfect guy to go out. And if you can figure out who's going to DH, who's going to play third, who's going to play first, Pete would mash in. Well, he mashes everywhere, but he would mash in the router center. Plus, he's used to the cold. He's a polar bear.
Yeah.
So,
Uh I've kind of gone back and forth on Pete Alonso because he again feels like another guy that's not going to age well. Like that, his profile is just one that time and time again does not hold up into their like mid to late 30s. He's going to be good for a few couple years, but like back half of contracts are not going to be
Well,
kind
that's what
to Pete Alonso.
that's why I think you're in on Pete for 3 or 4 years max. You do a front loaded contract, so you give him, I don't know, 30 this year, 30 the second year, and then like 20 and 10 or something like that, and
Yeah.
you get a 3 or 4 year 90, and you can give him an opt out after year one if he really thinks he could get 30 somewhere else next year. But that would be good for him. It would be good for you because you're paying for the good couple years that he probably has left. And then when he doesn't age well, it's not that debilitating. Like, he's a first baseman. They don't exactly go for a ridiculous amount of money anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like an Albert
Well,
Pujols
anyways,
situation.
I don't like the Blue Jays this year again. Like I just feel like they feel like an aging team. They I mean, they've got old guys like George Springer that are not getting younger. They have a lot of holes around the offense. I mean, obviously bringing a guy like Alonso helps with the offense in the short term quite a bit. Um, and then
But you're
even the rotation is on the downside. Guys like Kevin Gosman are not at their peak anymore. Chris Bassett's getting really old. Um, I don't like this team very much. I think I'm realizing that
you never know what you're going to get out of Alec Manoa.
he's
And
injured.
busy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. They're putting a lot of faith in guys like Dalton Varsho having a spectacular year that we really haven't seen from him yet. Um, Vladdy to be Vladdy, but also find more of that power in game. Bo to kind of have a resurgence from a down year last year. Like there's a lot of hopes and dreams, it seems, in this roster right now. And there's plenty of ways they could bolster it. But I think they maybe had their sights set too much on Roki and just kind of didn't look anywhere else. It's kind of what it feels like.
I guess I never thought of Roki as like a savior for any team season, including the Dodgers. Like it,
Yeah.
he's just the, he was a unique opportunity to have a guy that could develop into a superstar, and you don't count on him to be like an 180 inning guy in year one. So I don't feel like that's the move that they really needed to have. But
No, realistically, no. But I think in the kind of perfect world that people build in their mind, I think they may have been doing that and kind of hyping themselves up that this would be the ace and go about it that way. But
would you be
it's
surprised if the Jays at midseason are like just tanking and then they are forced to trade Vlad?
I don't think they will trade Vlad. I think if that happens, which this is going to be a really tough division for them, and I don't like their chances of coming in first, second, or third as of right now. Uh,
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that they would actually trade Vlad. I feel like it would be more of a Nationals Harper situation where you keep him hoping that that gives you one last chance to sign him long term.
Yeah.
Because without Vlad, let's be real, there's not much in the system as
Yeah.
far as we're gonna have a superstar soon. There's probably some good players in their system. I could think of a couple prospects that'll probably pan out to be solid players nobody that's spectacular by any means. Like,
Yeah, there's no superstar savior coming through the minor leagues for the Jays. I feel like this is it. Like this is like make or break season. Everybody's getting fired and might as well actually that might be the reason why they wouldn't trade Vlad at midseason because they are going down if they lose the
yeah.
the management.
Yeah.
So they're
Which,
going to
to be
pump
honest,
everything they
I'm a
can. They're going to screw over their successors with big contracts for Santander and Pete Alonso, but none of that matters because it's all about 2025 for the Jays.
yeah, I'm a little surprised that that whole front office still is there after
This is it.
after multiple
Yeah.
years of just disappointment. But it seems like they would have shaken something up because they didn't shake up the roster.
Yes.
So what else are you gonna do? I guess technically they did fire Charlie Montoyo, but that didn't
What?
really
That
help.
was like a few years ago, right?
Yeah, but that was like in the middle of that run that I'm talking about, where it's like they had hopes of like uh this is just the trailer. You haven't seen the movie yet.
Oh
Remember
yeah,
that
yeah.
whole thing?
They had a great
Like,
year though. They get credit for that. That was when they
yes,
were yeah.
yeah, but then the follow up for the next two, or I think it was 2 years after that, was disappointment. And
Yeah.
I'm shocked that that didn't get into somebody's head that maybe we need to mix something up. So
Yeah.
we'll see. All right, just a couple more quick notes here. The Arizona Diamondbacks have decided that they are going to be in this division and try and make it a three-horse race. Um, Last year they brought in Jordan Montgomery, didn't really pan out. This year they go and sign Corbin Burns, who is, I think, probably the number two pitcher that was available this year. Number one, if you,
Yeah.
yeah, to a 6 year, $210 million contract. That's a massive contract for a guy who is now how old?
He's 30.
30, 30. Um, and coming off a little bit of a down year for him, his cutter wasn't really cutting as much as it used to, and a couple
Until
other
the end.
things, but
Until the end of the
until
year.
the end. But they're banking on his return to absolute superstardom, um, to help get this Diamondbacks team that has struggled with their pitching for years back to the postseason, to have a shot at getting back to that World Series and hopefully win it this time.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love this move. I literally think that this move is a steal for the Diamondbacks because with like Max Free getting an 8-year deal, Corbin Burns getting only a 6-year deal and it being like 210 million, it's obviously it's a lot of money, but it's not that crazy and he apparently took a discount to come to the Arizona because he lives there and he kind of wanted to play there. Uh, but this is like a prime example of a team that's actually trying to win. And you mentioned the Montgomery signing didn't work out. They also signed Eduardo Rodriguez to a pretty big deal last year. That one
Yeah.
also didn't work out, but they're going right back to the well. They're not just saying, okay, we spent all our money, we're done. They're
Yeah.
continuing to supplement a team that was like very good, just made the World Series in 23. Um, they scored more runs than the Dodgers in the regular season. I mean, this is a awesome team, and
Yeah.
now
And
they've got a top pitcher too.
it seems like they got the taste of success when they made it to the World Series, and then they went, "Oh, we see investing money is a good thing because we brought in a ton of more ticket sales than we used to." Like, people were in seats in Chase Field, which is really not something that had happened since Randy Johnson was there. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So they got the bump from the World Series run, which is a very real thing. Now they're gonna get the Corbin Burns bump
mhm,
because they've had all offseason long to sell season ticket packages. and they
and
just said
jerseys
like, yeah, we
and
just got like the best pitcher in free agency, and we're awesome now. So
yeah, and we
come
have
out
Corbin
to Chase
Carroll,
Field.
and we have Jordan Lawler, and we have Slade Ciccone.
Gabriel Moreno. Yeah.
Yeah, Gabby Moreno. I just wanted to say Slade Ciccone. It's more fun.
They traded him, man, for
Oh,
Josh
they did?
Naylor. They got Josh
Oh,
Naylor.
he went back in the Naylor trade?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, but that was actually my next point was the Diamondbacks also went and tried to fill the hole from Christian Walker leaving and going to the Astros by bringing in Josh Naylor in a trade
Yeah.
from Cleveland. Apparently, Slade Ciccone was part of the return. Um, and yeah, so Naylor he's got a lot of raw power. He doesn't always access it during games, but last year he kind of went on a homer binge, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. He had a career high in homers. He definitely had his best season ever.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like it's a net zero for the bat. Like Walker was great for the Diamondbacks for the last few years, but you bring Naylor in to replace him, it's just as good essentially.
Yeah. And well, and the other thing that you get with him is you get a hype man. This dude
Yeah.
was headbutting Tito Francona in the bullpen or in the dugout. Um,
Yeah.
he's going to bring a lot of fun to this young team. And
Oh yeah.
Corbin Burns is a lot more serious whenever he's pitching. Josh Naylor is having fun 100% of the time. So
Yeah.
I this is going to make for a really good time for Diamondbacks fans.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think the last thing I want to talk about, since we're a little out of practice, I don't think we need to do a 3 hour pod. Um, the Yankees. The Yankees were uh, kind of trying to think of how I was going to phrase that. I had it in my head and then I completely dropped it. Um, the Yankees went big after Juan Soto. They were one of the final teams that was in that bidding. They lost Juan Soto, and that is a huge, huge loss to that team. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. We're going to have to talk about him on January 21st of like 2037 or something like that.
I
Um
think it'd be later than that, right?
2049.
Yeah.
Um that right after we talk about how Hall of Famer uh Cole Hamels died. I don't know who's old now. I
Oh man. Don't kill Hall of Famers, man.
well, I'm not trying. It just happens.
We already lost Ricky this year, man. Come on.
Yeah, but we're talking 2049. I'll be dead then. Yeah, we'll be talking about me dying at the top, and then we'll talk about Juan Soto getting into the anyway. Um, so how did the Yankees fill that hole? What do they do to get
Yeah.
them back to the World Series? Because Soto was a huge part of that. I don't know that they've actually found like an answer that is equivalent to re-signing Juan Soto, but they did trade for Cody Bellinger with the Cubs, and the Cubs got who in return?
Cody Poteet, a middle reliever.
Okay, so they got Cody Bellinger for peanuts.
Yeah.
So he'll
No,
take over.
that's truly what it is. Like that's a great deal for the Yankees because they got Cody Bellinger for money, nothing else, basically.
Yeah. So in Belly has been above average hitting the last couple years. He hasn't quite had that first year back with the Cubs. Just absolute resurgence. He didn't replicate it last year, but he's still back above average hitting, and he plays great defensively. So Judge will move back to right field. Cody Bellinger will take center field, and that's how the Yankees are going to try and get through it. They had another hole at first base because they let Anthony Rizzo walk. So they bring in Paul Goldschmidt on a 1 year deal. Another aging first baseman, former Silver Slugger, former Gold Glove, um, can bring a lot of leadership to that team. And there are some young guys there that I think could use that. But how do you how do you feel about how the Yankees have pivoted after missing out on Soto?
I'm good with their moves. Like I like their moves. They brought in Max Fried also. I think they're switching their philosophy because beyond obviously you can't replace Juan Soto, but they had so many other holes on the roster too, like we have been constantly talking about as we went through last year and actually the last few years, because it seemed like Judge was doing most of the heavy lifting and the supporting cast was really not that great. And now I think adding credible guys like Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, like that's going to help quite a bit because they had pretty much like deficient players at a lot of positions in the
Yeah.
lineup. So you add those guys in, it's more than just um, their contribution. It's like compared to what they have had at those positions in the past, which has been low quality. So I think those are good moves. They didn't have any other choices.
So in their not in their defense, to their fault, I guess. Anthony Rizzo missing a lot of time and being not very good after the whole concussion was kind of their fault. I'd just like to
Why
point
is it
that
their
out.
fault?
So, because they continued running him out there instead of putting him through
Oh,
concussion protocol, and then
mhm.
he tried to play through that for like a month and a half.
It was a lot longer than that. I think it was like 3 or 4 months, right?
Yeah. So the Yankees did that to themselves, having a deficiency at first base. Um,
But that one's also wasn't the Yankees. That was on Rizzo because he kept putting himself out there, even though he was having concussion syndrome.
they could have told him no.
Well, yeah,
Like there's blame to go around, but that's
I'm
kind
pretty
of
sure he just didn't say anything. That's what I read.
mm,
He just dealt with it. But
it's a bold choice, Scott, and let's see how that works
oh
out for
yeah,
him. But cool. Well, I think that is pretty much all we got for today. We do hope to be back very, very soon. I'm just kind of chilling here in my hotel, so hopefully we'll be able to get some more podcasts recorded and up here in the coming weeks. Um, we're probably going to start previewing some teams here soon. I think we've got a cool idea for that, so be on the lookout. And we will talk to you guys very, very soon. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.